feel like the ponytail is like a little too high. It's a little too much. It's a little too in charge right now. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to check out another video. So this is Pan Those Eyeshadows, but it's not, I mean, it would be update 14, but technically I think we're just going to kind of start over. It's going to be a refresh. Let's call this the intro. How about that? So if you missed it, I am in the process of moving. And so I only took with me 7 eyeshadow palettes. I've packed up the rest of my makeup and I don't want to go and access it and constantly dig around in through the box. What's packed is packed, that kind of thing. So out of the 7 palettes that I took with me, only one of them ended up being an eyeshadow palette that is in a project pan, and it's my Fantasy Self palette that I'm doing here with Laura. So I have 6 eyeshadow palettes that I packed, and none of them correspond to any project pan or Pan Those Eyeshadows or anything like that. When I was packing my makeup, I just kind of went with more these are the palettes that I want kind of thing. The ones that I guess I'm most excited or most sentimental for. So that was kind of the thought process behind that. But I so enjoy this project so much that I don't want to put it on hold. This project really, it gives me the ability to challenge myself and be more creative and put together things that I wouldn't necessarily put together and just get more love on my eyeshadow palettes. I'm also really excited because the 6 eyeshadow palettes that I have to select from, if I'm not mistaken, none of them have pan in them as we sit here now. So I'm excited. I think it's good. It'll be a nice refresh, but yeah. So my update videos, as we are in this kind of chaotic stage where most of my makeup is packed away, I'm not going to bother keeping up with pan percentage and things like that. I'll still mark it on my spreadsheets when I, do hit pan, and so that I know and I can fix it. But I know that as I was moving and packing things up, I did declutter a few palettes and things like that. So it wouldn't be an accurate number. We could still do bonus pans and things like that. But again, we only have 6 eyeshadow palettes to pull shades from. So it ends up being 79 shades. I don't know if there was, oh yeah, one last thing to note. I obviously didn't bring the palettes with me that I was working on in last update. And I did not bring my notebook. I can't find it. I don't know if it got packed away or not. But I can't even tell you oh, this is, how many times I used that shade from the Juvia's Place Zulu palette. I don't have any of that information. So yeah, we're just going to treat this as a complete new introduction to this video or to this series. And the last thing I want to mention before we roll our 6 new eyeshadows to work on for this project pan is that, of course, this was totally created, inspired by, however you want to say that, by Alexi here on YouTube. I always make sure she's linked in my description box as well as in the cards above. But I know I have a really bad habit of just jumping right in and not really saying, giving her the credit in that way, actually in the video, So I just want to make sure that I do that. I will also leave linked below her Pan Those Eyeshadows series that she is doing. And in the description box, I want to link some of my favorite people that I like to watch it or that I know that do it, just so in case you really enjoy this type of series, you will have way more content to binge down there. Alright, so like I said, I have 6 eligible eyeshadow palettes because I'm obviously not going to randomize a shade from my Fantasy Self palette that I'm doing with Laura. So it ends up being 79 pans of eligible eyeshadows. I did create a whole new spreadsheet for this. So we will get 6 numbers. Oh, it never wants to work for me. Alright, so we will have number 55. Oops, random. Why is this? Okay, 55, 34, 60, 26, 21, and then one more, 51. Okay, let me make sure that was 6. Okay, that was 6 shades. So I'm going to go see what these correspond to, and then I will show them to you. Alright, so we are going to re-roll one of the numbers. Ignore my terrible swatches. I feel like swatches never work out well when you use your non-dominant hand. But anyway, so the first, we rolled this one, which was number 34. It was the shade we rolled second, but you know, it came before this one is what I'm trying to say. This comes from the Kaleidos palette that's in collaboration with Angie, the Club Nebula. And so I'm going to keep this shade in. This shade comes from the Menagerie Killer Purr palette. This was number 21, and it corresponds to the shade Mighty Roar. So they're both very dark purple shades. I think this one from Club Nebula is obviously a little bit more like of a purple, and I feel like Mighty Roar almost has like a little bit more of like a plumminess to it. However, they're so similar and I would wear them in the same way. You guys know, one of the rules that we have for this project is no very similar samey shades, or no shades that are too similar to something in the Fantasy Self palette. So I still have Pretty Random pulled up, and we will just randomize one more number together. So 53. I'll be right back. Alright, so obviously since we only have 6 palettes to choose from, everything comes from the same 3 palettes. So I'm going to show them to you swatched out first, because that's the order that we rolled them, and then I'll show them to you in the actual like palette, because I don't want to like jump back and forth, you know what I mean? So anyway, in the order that we rolled them, this first one was 55, which comes from the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, and it is the shade Shield. Underneath that one, the next one we rolled is 34, which comes from the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette that was in collaboration with Angie, and it is the shade Cylon. Underneath that one is also from the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. It was shade 60, and it corresponds to, or it was number 60, and it corresponds to the shade Fuse. Then again, we jump to the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette. It was shade number 26, and this is 7 of 9, which is a really interesting, like, very bright blue shade. Okay, so then underneath that, we rolled number 51, which comes from the Kaleidos Futurism 6 Lunar Lavender palette, and it is the shade Crater Grove. And then the one that we just re-rolled for, shade number 53, also comes from the Metropolis palette, and it is the shade Troop. So looking at that, it is a interesting color story. I think the bright blue kind of throws me off, but I'm also kind of interested to see how it pairs with everything. Overall, like, even like if you take out the bright blue, I feel like we just have like a grungy green purple gold kind of color story. That blue really, well, the blue and then this Fuse shade from the Metropolis palette, the like gold shade, that's what gives me more like spring summer vibes, but the rest of it kind of is just like my standard grunge shades. So I'm not mad at it. I'm really excited. I'm excited to see how all of these pair together. But yeah, let me show you the actual pans of eyeshadow. Okay, so we'll look at the 3 that come from the Metropolis palette first. And so, like I said, I got to reference the card. Okay, so this green right here is Troop. Underneath that is Fuse. And then if we look right here, is it this one? No, this one, sorry guys. This shade right here is Shield, which was the 3 that we rolled from this palette. So you can see like not a whole lot of, well, I feel like there's some good dips on some of these, like especially that Troop shade. Fuse, the gold, feels so soft. Like I don't know how many uses it'll take to hit pan, but it feels like such a soft shimmer shade that I can't imagine it taking a whole lot of uses. Okay, so then we go to the Club Nebula palette, and we had 2 shades from here. So I don't know the best way to hold it without blinding you guys, but this is the Cylon shade that we got, and then this bright blue right here is 7 of 9. I have not yet used the bright blue shade from this palette on my eyes, but I have used the darker purple shade. Absolutely love that as like an outer V shade to like deepen up look, so I'm not at all like intimidated. And the more that I like get to play around with this palette, the more I really do enjoy it, and it's not nearly as intimidating as I thought it would be. So then, like I said, the final shade comes from the Futurism 6, the Lunar Lavender, and it is the shade Crater Grove, which ends up just being this nice, like, kind of brown, almost grounding shade. It is a little bit dark, and it's kind of on the gray tone side a little bit. Like, let me re-show you the swatch of it. Here is that Crater Grove shade. I don't know how well it picks up on camera, but definitely in person, it's like a chocolate gray brown. That's the best way I can describe it. So yeah, one final look at our new color story that we will be working on. I'm really excited. I will of course take like close-up pictures and everything of the shades, take pictures of looks and things like that. So the next update will be way more exciting and way more on par with what our previous like rounds and update videos look like. But I hope you guys are just as excited as I am, and I thank you for watching, and I cannot wait to catch you guys in the next video. Bye.